Jim had that intro timed out perfect. He knew exactly when to pop in just to get here right in the nick of time.
Oh, well done, Jim. Well done.
Right on time. Yeah, sorry. It's been a while since I've been on the show in this setting and this location, so I forgot how I had everything set up before.
But how's it going, boys? How are you having a happy Thursday night so far?
Oh, dude, this is like month-long Christmas in my neck of the woods. I've never in January been so happy about the sport of football, and it has nothing to do with the NFL. Not even a little bit. In fact, it's the NFL's bringing quite a source of angst for other reasons that we'll get into that we touched on last week. But
it's looking like it's more and more of a reality, my man.
Here's to the GOAT, and I'm not talking about Belichick. Here's to Nick Saban leaving at the most inopportune time, fucking over his team, making all of Alabama cry on the internet for 8 straight days. I mean, does it get any better?
I mean, if Georgia was collapsing, it'd be even better. But
you can only have one at a time. You can only have one at a time, Duke.
One complete downfall at a time. Okay.
Yeah. Georgia gave you the 90s. That should be enough to hold you over on, like, enjoying Georgia being terrible and humiliating and a laughing stock and an embarrassment.
I mean, I don't want them to be a laughing stock or anything like that. I just want them to be like Mark Richt coached them, 2 losses, 3 losses every single year. But they look good doing it.
See, that was Nick Saban the last 3 years. So that was the closest to Rick that I think you'll get for a little bit. Because what Alabama's about to experience is going to be a few tiers below, in my humble opinion.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I'd say we can kind of kick off with that, because once we get to talking about the NFL stuff, that'll carry over from last week's games into this week's game. So let's talk about some of the coaching shakeups and where people are landing and some of the rumors that are coming out of the college football landscape. So run us down on who all ended up where, because it got a little bit. There were rumors of who was going where, and then there was the actuality of who ended up where, and it got confusing there for about a 18-hour period where between the rumors and then the actual, there were rumors of who was going where, and then there were rumors that people were re-signing places, and then there were it all got kind of crazy. How did it all fall out?
So first it starts with Nick Saban going into the portal and signing with Shady Pines Retirement Community down in Jupiter, Florida. And that's what kicked this whole thing off. And anybody that's been a sports fan, especially a college football fan, more so I would think than the NFL, is when you have a coach of a major program leave for any reason, retire, fire, takes another job, that immediately creates a ripple effect that goes out throughout the offseason. And sometimes it lasts for 3 seasons if they don't get the hires right. And so Saban's out, and his entire staff and roster is now up for grabs to all of college football. And they go on about a 48-hour, actually between 48 and 72-hour coaching search, because the funniest part about all this, there was no succession plan. Nick Saban, the greatest of all time, did not have an exit strategy.
Well, it also seems like every single person that they prioritized in the rumor mill, let's assume that all these people that came out in the rumor mill and then they said, hey, I'm staying where I'm staying, and then they sign a big ass contract or something, I think those were all the choices that they wanted, and they just kept getting turned down because they knew Saban was still going to be in the building. Yeah, go ahead.
So that's one part of this whole coaching search. Now, the NFL's different. I don't know if it's all teams, but at least with the Falcons, they're telling you every single person they are interviewing. In college, it's not that at all. They don't have to tell you who they made offers to, who they picked up a phone and checked on. It is all just what you said, Duke, rumor mill. But the whole land of college football reporting is based on rumors plus time equals results, and then you get to gauge who you listen to in the college football world, because it's nothing but rumors. But if you notice, oh, this guy's got like a 80%, 90% hit rate, I'm going to start listening to those guys that have good reputations. And most all those people, and it was pretty obvious, the coaching list, and we might have discussed this last week, but it was Dan Lanning, number one, Steve Sarkisian, Mike Norvell at Florida State. I don't think that Lane Kiffin was on that list. Last week, I thought he was.
Mhm.
Now, looking at how things played out, I don't think he was on the list. I don't think he got a phone call at all.
I think we in our chat, I don't know if we even talked about it on the show, but in our chat, I know we talked about Kiffin, but
Yeah, we definitely did.
I don't feel like Kiffin's not a guy that Alabama wants. Like, Alabama doesn't want Kiffin. Alabama's fans don't want Kiffin. Like that, the boosters, the program, like nothing.
Yeah.
They didn't want him when he was there as the OC or whatever. Like
Well, that's where I'll slightly disagree with you. Fans do want him, but the admins, the boosters, and the suits absolutely do not want him.
See,
He's a
this
liability.
this is why I thought that right now, if they were ever going to hire Lane Kiffin to do this job, right now would be the time to do it, because it's going to be hard for the person replacing Nick Saban, no matter who the fuck it is.
You don't want to be the guy who follows the guy.
Exactly. So if he fails and gets fired, it was to be expected. If he succeeds, they're geniuses for picking him and putting their pettiness behind him. So they would be playing with like house money. Like if 3 years he sucked and was like winning 3-4 games every single year for 3 years straight, they could have got rid of him, and then they would never had to hear Lane Kiffin ever again. And at that point, they probably could look at Dan Lanning, who would maybe want to get out of the Pacific Northwest and the Big Ten and come down the SEC back home down south, or something like that.
Yep.
Or get Sarkisian to leave Texas, come over. But not right now. They're just building up these places. And you got maybe in a few years when they fix this whole NIL transfer portal shit. But right now, Dan Lanning's not going to leave Oregon with all that Nike money.
No.
Sarkisian's not going to leave Texas with all that oil money. It's the NIL is really shifting the balance of power, and you're seeing that with how Alabama's just falling apart. Everyone's going to the highest bidder now.
Yeah. Alabama has completely imploded in less than 1 week's time. It's remarkable. It should be a learning lesson to all other Power 5 programs. Have a plan in place so that you don't go through this, because this is the most like just quagmire fuck up. I mean, I feel bad for my friends who are Bama fans, but I don't feel bad at all for that program or the fan base as a whole. Like, you get what you fucking deserve. And after 17 years of terrorizing college football to the point where drastic changes have been made to try to negate the Nick Saban effect, you now are getting the worst end of the results of a lot of that. Go back to your original question. Who was on the list? How did we get here? Everybody that we've listed so far, not currently coaching in Tuscaloosa. The person they went with, DeBoer, what's his first name? Kalen? Yeah, Kalen DeBoer out of Washington. He was not on my radar at all. Maybe even last week when we did the show. He's a good coach. He's a safe hire. But he isn't who the fans were clamoring for. Everybody that we listed, in some order, different order for different people, depending on what you want to see in Alabama, that was the list. And they didn't get any of them. In fact, everybody on that list, especially Mike Norvell, got pay raises to stay where they're at. And we don't know if they got a call or not. We don't know if Alabama actually made an offer to any of those people, because we'll never know.
But they all just magically got pay increases.
Yeah.
and made statements like social media posts saying, "I'm staying home."
Yep. Dan Lanning had the best one when he's like, "If you're worried about your coach maybe not being around, come to Oregon." And I was like, that's how you do it in today's modern college football. Is you got to cut a shit talking Heat video. You know, you gotta make
Got a
your own
promo.
Heat. Yeah, you gotta cut your own promo. You are your own promoter. So I dig it. I've loved everything about this so far. Now, yes, I do know one day Kirby won't be the coach at Georgia, and all of this could be coming down on me. But that ain't today. So I'm loving it for now.
Basking it while you can.
Hell yeah. You know how they always say, like, oh, enjoy, you know, like Alabama's like, hey, this is our heyday. Like, enjoy it while we got Saban. We're saying the same thing in Georgia. Hey, it's never been better in our lifetimes. Enjoy it now. This is also something I've never experienced. And this is also something that I'm probably never going to experience again. I'm enjoying this while it's here. I'm not going to let this opportunity pass me by and not fully understand what is happening. It's history. Like, college football will change as a result of how this is absolutely just imploding. So this might not ever happen again, because I think that they will change rules to where you can't just absolutely snipe an entire football team until there's nothing left. But until they do.
Yeah. No. And it's not going to be much longer, I don't think. It's only going to be a few more years until they're going to have to make some changes and get rid of the whole student-athlete designation.
Yeah.
And so they're not allowed to transfer like this anymore, and they're going to actually sign binding contracts to schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, fine, you'll get paid. They'll probably even have like a grade pay rate. Like, if you're a freshman, you can only get salary capped at this. Yep. Sophomore, this. And then as they go up, and then they'll probably make it so that, you know, you can get your sponsorships or whatever, but as like a senior quarterback, you could make like $1 million a year from the school for your senior year. That's probably how it's going to like go, something like that.
And I would say, like, what I would like to see, and I agree with that model, is within that model, if you're a graduate, no rules, no cap, no nothing. You are, because you're now a working adult who might not just be invited to the combine or eligible for NFL yet. You know, you might want to, you have the freedom to then transfer to whatever school you want, make, you know, 1.5 mil or whatever, if a school thinks that that is your value, so that you can put your best material on tape for the league. Yeah. I think if you've paid your dues all the way through graduating, then because that also incentivizes graduates and getting your degree.
I mean, go back to a lot of the old rules. Like, what was it? If you transferred, you had to sit a year. Grad transfers can go automatically. So if you make it so that, like, the max you can make at any school is X amount, like, as a sophomore, you can only make a max of $400,000 a year, no matter where you go. Like, you can make less, but you can't make more than that. But you're going to transfer it out. Fine. You can go, but you're going to have to sit out a year like before and not make any money that 1 year.
Yep.
And then go and make your money somewhere else. But as a grad, like you said, like if like Cam Ward, who just signed with Miami, you know, he's a grad transfer. Let him go down there for $2 million and put more tape in there, like you said, and make some fucking money and maybe get one of these teams over the hump. I'm fine. But
I think at some point they are going to have to put they're going to have to knock on the NFL's door and get their not only input, but I think the NFL is going to have to be a little more involved, because if you have because right now it's the Wild West, and it's fun and entertaining for the sake that it's chaotic as all hell. But our quarterback at Georgia, Carson Beck, has only started 1 year, and again, rumors are that he's making 1.5 mil this year, or this past year. It's likely going to go up. It won't go down. That is more than the rookie contract. He's making more. Well, at least I think. I know that there are college players making more than Brock Purdy. And so I think the NFL and college is going to have to agree. You can't. I don't know. I see holes in my argument as I'm making it. I guess I really don't care. But it's just wild that you can be in college making more money than the pros. Like, you would think that ceiling would have to come up on the floor of NFL. Yeah. Because if you're able to get the maximum that you can make in college, you're going to the NFL.
But that's because the fact that they aren't actually associated with each other is the only reason that they're able to get away with that.
Yep. Yeah, treat it more like the minor leagues for the league.
It's going to have to be that way soon.
Separate them from this whole academic student athlete. Like, can we stop playing games? Like, they haven't been student athletes our entire lives. Sure, some of them might graduate. Some of them might even get a 4.0 and get a degree that they use, as soon as they get cut from their very first training camp in the league. Those guys are smart for doing that. But let's not act like the incentives aren't there for them to only pursue athletic means. No. I mean, it's a joke.
No, I mean, they should keep, since it is college football, they should still keep the whole, like, you got to go to class, you got to maintain this, that, the other thing, certain GPA, good standing. But yeah, don't treat these people not like they're not semi-pros or pro athletes already.
Yeah.
I mean, the NCAA is making billions of dollars, and that's where I think a lot of this is going to come in, is the networks and the leagues are going to be like, fine, we'll give them some kind of revenue sharing so we can make them employees, so we can get rid of this whole, because it's ruining it. Like, I saw a really good, I can't remember what his name is, like Pet or Pete or something like that. He's some college football analyst or whatever. And he was talking about how all these opt-outs are costing so much fucking money for the NCAA because no one wants to sponsor these bowl games anymore. No one wants to give them money because who wants to go and watch the fucking Gator Bowl with a bunch of third-string players in there, for Iowa and Missouri to play each other or something? No one wants to watch that shit.
No one wants to watch and no one does. No. No one does.
So you have to be able to pay for play. Like right now with the NIL and them being student athletes, you can't pay for play. But if your game check relies on it, like, oh, hey, the bowl game is one more game check in the season that I wouldn't have originally gotten, but I only get it if I fucking play, then you're going to get a whole lot of people more buying into the game like they did before. And they play hard like they did before, and you'll probably get even people that are going to the NFL, like our first round draft picks, are probably still going to play that fucking game.
Yeah. I mean, you can make the whole commentary on what does this mean on a grander scale of where we're at as a society when there's no pride and, and team. And when you like the whole Dabo Sweeney argument, like when you commit to a place, you stick it out for 4 years. Like, well, the second that they even allowed the opportunity to exit college early, after only 3 years to go pursue the league, that is what killed the whole student athlete. Yeah. Everything else was just a natural follow-up to that crack in the dam. So what I'm saying is, Dabo, if you believe it, then you should be pushing for only college graduates can go to the draft, or something like that. But as long as you have 3-year opt-outs, you ain't serious. You're just halfway. You're standing in between yesteryear and, 50 years ago. You're not really even in the present. But the long and short of it is college football is about to go through a shitload of changes. They're already going through so many with the expanded playoff, no more divisions and conferences, conference expansion, NIL, the portal, multiple portal windows in the calendar year, early signing day, regular signing day. I mean, NCAA that has no power and is fully neutered. All of those in one big pot is what makes up current modern college football. It is 100% unsustainable. It will hurt the product.
Yeah, it already is.
Yes, I agree.
Got anything to say there, Justin?
My only thoughts. I've never been particularly big on the pay-to-play thing because I was part of college athletics, and we never hurt for money. Like you don't need to get paid as a college athlete. Like all the ones that were crying about it, that was some propaganda bullshit. You never hurt for money. Even support staff for the team, you don't hurt for money. Like I was manager for the women's team, and I did not ever hurt for money. But that's neither here nor there. So that's why I've always tried to stay out of the pay for play argument, and just whatever you're going to do it, and don't try to act like it needs to be fair across all sports, because it shouldn't. No. Like that, make sure that do it the right way, pay the ones that deserve to get paid. Don't try to God love them. Don't give the women's lacrosse team money. Like, fuck. You know what I mean?
They're not generating the money.
Sorry.
You know,
Right.
It all comes down to, like Jim kind of said, like, for decades now, it has not been amateur. College football has not been an amateur sport.
Right.
They generate billions of dollars every single year in television revenue and games and everything like that. It's once it got into that point where they're making billions of dollars, the players are not going to, just the way it is, the players were not going to not get a slice of that pie one way or the other.
Right.
You know, and it was bound to happen. So the NCAA needs to get back to the point where they actually have all the control so they can start paying these people like the NFL, like you said, and have them locked down. Because if you're going to come in and be like, all right, maybe you'll get more of that pride back when.
Then EA Sports can bring back NCAA football, and we can have the best football game on the planet again. Madden's fine, but the NCAA games were always better.
Madden's only fine because it's the only game in town.
Yeah.
But
it's had some problems for a while. I haven't really played it in years.
Now, real quick, putting a button on this thing. Don't get me wrong. I like the way football was when we were still under the illusion of student athletes and they weren't making money. I preferred that. I loved the era of football prior to the opt-out, like the pre-opt-out era, and that really goes back to BCS. I preferred that atmosphere and that lore around the game more. I want to recapture that, but that's only going to come through way of what you were saying, Duke, with contracts, binding contracts. Combine that, and we've also mentioned this in the group chat, bring back like the best of the BCS with the playoff that we're going to be entering next year, the 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
Get the committee out of it.
Yeah.
Use the BCS computers. Sign these kids to contracts. And let's try to recapture what made us fall in love with the sport to begin with. Because if I was a 12-year-old coming into watching college football now, I don't know if I would recognize college football in a few years. And and you're going to lose that next generation's interest because they're going to be like, wait, why is this? You're going to have to be doing a lot of explaining to the next generation that's going to be filling those rosters in 8 years. And so they need to do it. They need to do it quickly. Yeah. Because college football, I think, when done right, is the best sport in America.
Well, and honestly, I'm okay with some of these sponsors for bowl games drying up. Like, okay, let's reduce the number of bowls. Let's increase the number of wins to qualify for a bowl. You got to have 7 wins instead of 6. Like, let's make it a little more. You deserve to play in a bowl. And then if you actually deserve to play in a bowl, you're more likely to show up and play in the bowl. And you're more likely to try to win. Like, make the bowl matchups actually meaningful. Put teams against each other that have a reason to want to go beat the shit out of each other. Nobody gives a fuck about, Western Michigan versus South Dakota State. You
end up with a team that's happy to be there playing another team's practice squad. It's no real assessment.
No,
it's a bastardization of the game. Like Georgia, Florida State, that shit should never happen. And I'll be honest, Florida State should be fucking embarrassed. That's on them.
Yeah,
like Georgia did nothing. They showed up and they went where they were told and they played who they were that was in front of them. But Florida State cried, whined, and acted like Bama fans are right now, and it
didn't show up,
gave up, quit, and then complained about it. And that kind of bullshit will also hurt the sport badly.
Agreed.
So really, we need a lot less bitches and a little bit more rules, regulations, and keep people in their fucking lane. And then maybe pride might end up resulting out of those parameters that we used to work within. Yeah. We can only find out by trying it out.
No, but I mean, when you force them to be there for at least 3 years, you sign them to a 4-year contract with a third, like a opt out or whatever of that 4th year. If you're going to the league, if you're not redshirted, or they got to work something out like that. But it's like, if you force them to have to be at one place for 4 years on a contract, then yeah, they're going to eventually, you're going to rebuild that pride because they had no other choice. Just like, you have Giants pride or Falcons pride or something like that. Like the players want to be those teams.
Yeah.
If you force them to be there for at least a few years, like, yeah, all right, commitment, recruiting is going to mean a whole lot more because once you sign that dotted line, you're there for at least 3 years, 4 years, depending on what happens. Unless you transfer out, then you're going to lose a year and you're going to lose money and you're going to not allow people to go unless, like you say, with grad transfers, go back to letting them get out of there.
Yeah, you void that contract. Now, I'm not, and I think this was made very apparent last March or April when I sat in on the March Madness episode of of this show, and I was asking questions like, "What is the possession arrow about? Like, why do they do what when the ref points that way, but it's really their ball? Like, I don't know. It's a kooky sport to me. But one thing I've heard a lot over the past week, as reasons why Alabama is justified in their whining and bitching, is they cite that all of this actually started in college basketball, with the absolute reduction of any mandatory period. Like, you can just play 1 year, and after your freshman year, you're eligible to go to the league. Yeah. The one and done rule and the whole pay to play. Like, I'm unfamiliar with that, but I mean, because I'm of the impression that it's football's problem that football created, but I'm learning that it might have actually stemmed off of the basketball court, not the football field.
It came from basketball. You had there were a number of ex-players that went to the league and were largely unsuccessful, but their image and likeness was being used in college basketball games and stuff like that. And so since they decided to leave what was a pretty cushy gig in playing for large Division I basketball schools to go
to UCLA guy, wasn't it?
Ed O'Bannon was one of them, but there were some others involved in the suit. To leave their very cushy college gigs and go fail in the NBA, and then they wanted to try to recoup, more or less, they wanted to try to recoup some of their money. So they started all this bullshit. That was the initial step towards all of the rest of this, and it all kind of built out of that. So yeah, it was basketball created the problem, and then football is kind of bearing the brunt of the problem, as you're starting to see with the way the transfer portal has worked. I think it's more affected football, and with coaches moving the way they do and everything else, like you get coaches that move around in basketball, but not like in football. Like, football is a whole other animal. And so it has, yes, football are the ones who are dealing with the problem, but it came from some basketball bullshit.
Okay. So cultural decay started on a basketball court. Got it.
There you go. And the basketball programs are now kind of pay for play, and it's created its own changing dynamic. But for a lot of it, basketball is still operating the way it did before. Like, have you ever seen Blue Chips with Shaq?
I was just going to say Blue Chips, yeah.
It's one of my all-time favorite movies growing up.
That's kind of college basketball. Like, for as much as that movie caused the NCAA to try to make public changes, that's kind of the way shit's done. Like, it is what it is, and everybody knows that it is what it is, and like, just nobody talked about it. And now it's legally pay for play. So now it's, you get to do all the things that you were doing behind closed doors out in the hallway. It's like nothing changed. So
that movie forced me to make my mom drive me up to a sporting goods store so I could buy a basketball net chain. And I took off my perfectly good shoelace material netting that it comes with. And I was like, no, I want to hear that. I want to hear that chain. because that was in Blue Chips, and I'm White Shaq now. Yeah, that movie affected me.
White
Excellent
Shaq
movie.
being whack.
Excellent movie. We should do a review of that or something at some point. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of where all of this came from. Was it started with basketball, and then football now gets to be the ones that have to deal with the actual problems from it, since the basketball problem was more behind the scenes than out in the open, and it just allowed the things that happened in basketball to be legal. Because with the one and done and with like transfer rules the way they were for basketball players anyway, it was a little more lax. It wasn't like you didn't have the once you're here you have to play, you have to be 3 years removed before you can go to the league. Like, the one and done thing kind of made it a lot more loosey goosey in terms of what you as a player had the freedom to move around and do. So, and even like the transfer rules were, you may have to sit out a year if you transferred, but they also had different like waivers and stuff for if there was a legitimate reason why you were transferring. You weren't just transferring because you didn't like the school, then you could get the NCAA to waive your year sitting out. And so like there were a lot of weird stuff with basketball that made all of this not as much of a problem. So when it all went into effect, it really didn't affect basketball all that much. It affected football a lot more.
Yeah. So like at first, the result of that initial ruling was they had to take our video games away.
Yeah.
Which, terrible fucking what? No, just tell them fuck off. It's not your image and likeness. It's a digital image
all
of
generic
a
players.
generic.
They don't even use the names.
No. We only pay the schools for the trademark licensing of their logos and names, but not the players. And we should have.
They wore the same number as me, though, Jim. They wore the same number as me.
Okay, randomize the numbers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but just keep the edited player on everything, because with the internet, especially now with the internet, you can just download the actual real roster, just like you're torrenting a movie, and you're right back in there. Like, I don't know. We should have never lost the video games, but because we lost the video games is what caused, I think, the first wave of like, hey, we don't like the ruling that you came up with. And then eventually over 10 years, it gained steam, and they're like, all right, fine, we'll start paying the players a shitload, and we'll ruin the sport that way. And you'll still have to wait 7 years to get your video game after we reverse this ruling, which allegedly the EA Sports, there's college sports is nothing but rumors. But there were rumors that during the Natty, we were going to get a commercial for the new NCAA football game. Never happened. It was all bullshit. And then I think earlier this week, there were rumors of a release date leak of July 12th. And then the global director of marketing from EA had to come out and say, actually, that's incorrect. We don't have a release date. So we are still waiting on this game that has been cleared for 2 years now. Over 2 years. They told us 2 years ago, game's coming back. So that's just a little, it affects my world, and I just had to vent a little bit that the real casualty of this is the common everyday fan who just wanted to game during the off season.
I want the college basketball games back. Like, yeah. I absolutely hate all of the NBA 2K games. They are just complete horse shit. Once NBA Live fell off, then like the NCAA, the EA Sports NCAA basketball game was the only good playable basketball game for me. And I've still got NCAA 10, I think, or I can't remember, like the last year that they were allowed to make it. I've still got it. It's on my PlayStation 3, and I'll still break it out and play it every once in a while just because I want to play a basketball game on a fucking console. But there's literally not another one. I tried downloading and playing the most recent NBA 2K 24 or whatever, 20. I can't remember if it was 23 or 24. I think it was 23. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. I hate the mechanics of it. Like EA and the college basketball games, they had it right. And like that just it pisses me off so much. I've got the game is right there, and every time I look at it, I just get mad.
No, I totally get you. Like NCAA football 2013 or 2014.
Because 14 was the last one.
Yeah, but it comes out in 13. That whole thing. I have NCAAs going back to like 07 or no 03 that are on consoles that I don't even own anymore. That are now collector's items that I would have to go pay $300 to get a working, PS2 or Xbox or whatever, just to play the damn things. Or I could be a computer nerd and like emulator or what. But anyway, I do the same thing. I'll go online and I'll download, because there are other persistent nerds out there that will create rosters for every team and every player, and then you can go download them, and I'll still crack out the 360, dust it off, have to let it warm up a little bit, talk to it real nice, and then I'll sit there and I'll play, nothing but that, knowing that the whole time I'm playing it, I'm like, these graphics are so shit. Like,
doesn't even matter.
No, and the EA Sports college division of games were the best. They were superior to the professional games, like the NBAs and the Maddens, even back then. The shit thing is that was over 10 years ago now, or maybe a little over 10 years. There's no telling where those people went, and if we're gonna get a game that's anywhere remotely as enjoyable today, they're gonna look amazing. But are they going to bring back the actual playability as the old ones did? That's the question that everybody is done.
And like the way that the recruiting was done, where
with story mode and everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like it was good. It was good stuff. Like the like the draft prep and stuff on Madden. It's just not any. It's not nearly the same as recruiting on NCAA football and building your coaching staff and stuff like. There was just a whole different dynamic with that from what you get with the Madden games.
My fear is that they're just going to take Madden and they're going to model it, like downgrade it or whatever.
Just put a college skin over it.
Speaking of Madden and the old school games, that's a good transition into the NFL this week. The graphics, the last time the Lions got a playoff win versus their most recent playoff win, John Madden Football 91. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, Jesus. That was a good one. I think that was the last year that the ambulance actually came out on the field, and depending on where the placement of players were on the field, that ambulance would run over more players. It would not count as an injury, but it would be hilarious when you were 10 years old playing that game. It was like, oh, I just took out your whole team with the ambulance. You suck.
So if you were playing an NFL football game in the 90s, were you playing John Madden Football or were you playing Tecmo Bowl?
I was playing Tecmo Bowl, play action football, and any of the Maddens. I was in that shit.
There was one year that the Madden, oh gosh, it was but it was before the teens. So it was like late 2000s, like 2010, somewhere in that neighborhood, where one of the Madden games had like the Tecmo Bowl rosters where you could go back to like the late 80s and
I remember that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Hell yeah. No, I back on Super Nintendo, because obviously Tecmo Bowl was on Nintendo, but on Super Nintendo was play action football. And that game had every professional team and every college team. Now, it was weird as shit because the field would be turned 45 degrees. So you're playing from bottom left corner of your screen running up to the top right-hand corner. But it was a phenomenal game as far as like I was playing as Garrison Hurst, Georgia versus Georgia Tech when Tech was a thing. And then I would switch over and be the Cowboys. And that was on a Super Nintendo game. All I'm saying is they made some fucking banger. And this was before like NFL Quarterback Club on the 64, like in 97, 98.
Blitz.
That game was amazing. Yeah, Blitz was phenomenal. I got a 64 and I have Blitz and I dusted that thing off. Back when I was looking for the NCAA game, I came across my 64 and I plugged that thing up and tried to play Blitz. I am dog shit. Can't play it. 12-year-old me would have kicked the shit out of myself.
You don't have the feel for it anymore.
No.
I went to an arcade a few months ago, and they had Blitz in there, and I tried playing it, and I'm like, all right, yeah, this isn't exactly how I remember it.
No, something has changed. I don't know.
All those games.
Once you get over,
we've changed.
Yeah, once you get over 30,
yeah,
something goes away.
Yeah, I couldn't play Blitz, couldn't play Killer Instinct anymore. Turok, none of it was working.
Well, also speaking of the Lions,
mm-hmm.
They got their first win in 30 plus years, undefeated at Ford Field.
Oh, nice! I didn't know that stat.
Well, they've only played once, so.
Oh, I thought you meant the entire year. My bad.
My bad.
Bad news, Buckaroos. You're going into a Lion's den where they've never lost a playoff game.
Speaking of going into that Lion's den, I wonder how the weather is going to affect them once they get there.
Coach, looking forward towards Detroit. The weather has been a factor in some of the playoff games, even for the most prepared teams. Today, it's 13 in Detroit, which doesn't compare to some of the temperatures in the top two.
And it was at this moment.
Plans to acclimate the team to not only endure but perform in those kind of frigid temperatures should you face them in Detroit.
You do know we play indoors, right? They got a dome. I don't. No, nothing planned. We're indoors, and we only have to be outside for 20 seconds getting off the bus going into the thing. So
his answer is perfect.
Now, the only thing is he's such a serious man. He missed a great opportunity. Like Mike McDaniel down in Miami. I would love to have heard him answer her question. Because it should have been like, well, unless something catastrophic has happened in Detroit where the roof of their dome has been ripped off, we should be fine. Like, there's such an opportunity to just kind of
Bowles is just such a straight-laced, deadpan, like no sense of humor. Like it was the most Todd Bowles answer humanly possible. Like
they play in a dome. Yeah, I'm not preparing.
Excuse me, Coach, but follow-up question: what is your plan to combat actual lions? Like, I mean, that was the level of intellect she was asking that question with. Like, how are you going to combat the weather? I mean, it's Detroit, right? It's like, bitch.
By her voice, they were like, "We just need a black woman to cover sports." So,
who did you blow to get this job? Because it ain't
Willie Horton. No.
I mean, good Lord. It's like saying, hey, you're going to New Orleans Superdome. It's really rainy down there. How do you think that's going to affect the ball? Have you been practicing with a wet ball? Like, get out.
Unless
go far away.
They ain't going to have to worry about it.
That's true.
So the Lions picked up their first win in 30-something years. That was actually the only good game of this past weekend. The Rams put up a fight. It was an entertaining game. All the rest of them were fucking blowouts. Gosh, who'd we have?
Well, it started with Houston Texans and the Browns.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that was the first game on Saturday.
And C.J. Stroud continued to prove he is him.
Yeah,
and he's the truth. He's the one and only Ohio State quarterback who will ever be anything in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And Flacco finally had a Flacco game at the worst humanly possible time to have a Flacco game.
Good Lord, that was bad. Back-to-back pick sixes. I mean, literally, I was working on some stuff, and so I was just kind of glancing up, and I was like, okay, well, maybe in the third, fourth quarter, I'll watch the rest of the game like with my full focus. Every time I looked up, there was another touchdown on the board, and I was like, I could actually just turn this off. Like, there's no need to watch this anymore. If you weren't a fan of either team, I mean, it was bad. It was bad. I picked the Browns to win because I figured the whole Texans' hopes are on a rookie quarterback. Eventually, that's gonna teeter. all you one small crack in the foundation of confidence for a rookie in a playoff game, and that's going to be a runaway train in the opposite direction. That didn't happen.
No.
Quite the opposite.
And Cleveland's defense all year long had been nasty.
Yeah,
and they look like they never played before.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Was Cleveland's defense has been so good the whole year, like they're going to come out and they're just going to start punching Houston in the mouth right out of the gate, and that never happened.
Now, Flacco was playing out of his old mind for like the final 6 weeks of the season, which is the whole reason why I think they were even in the playoffs to begin with, especially after losing Chubb.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
But even with Chubb remaining out, if Deshaun Watson actually showed up for that paycheck that they've guaranteed him, do you think the game goes any differently? Deshaun going back to Houston? I could still see it going exactly the way it did because of all of the atmospheric, environmental.
It may have gone worse.
Outside noise. Yeah, I think so too.
It may have gone worse.
That Houston defense was dialed up and ready to play, and so it was. Yeah, I don't think Deshaun Watson makes any difference in this game.
Well, and question: do they bring Joe Flacco back to be Watson's backup next year? Or do they keep running with?
I don't know if Flacco does that.
You don't think he wants to do that? Come in and have the chance to
take
take over
Flacco
again?
I think Flacco would be comfortable to sit it out, not have to deal with training camp and all the other bullshit, be semi-retired, and then in the event that somebody gets hurt and they need a replacement, to come in and do that. Like
break glass in case of Flacco, you know?
Yeah, I think there is something to be said for the amount of work that goes into a full off season, being the full-time backup, all of that stuff. And I just don't think he wants to fuck with that.
Yeah. I think a lot of Flacco's success was because it was under the auspice of like, we just need you now. Just go out and do now. There was no like expectation of a long period of time that he was going to have to. So I think if you keep him in those short burst moments, like if Deshaun Watson comes back and he's healthy and he plays the whole year, you can still keep Flacco. And like, even if they make it to a playoff game, even a Super Bowl and Deshaun gets knocked out and you just need him for a half. I think Flacco can give you a damn good half. I think it's once he is counted on for long stretches that age starts to creep in.
Yeah.
And you got maybe 4 full games out of him before you really got to put him on a pitch count.
Well, but if he also is committed and goes through a full off season and is in shape and everything,
right, that's what I'm saying.
Like do a little bit more, but does he even really want to do that? Is like what you're saying, Justin.
Well, and like I think the full off season and all of that takes the pitch count down or makes it become a thing sooner. Like Mike Golick talked about it one year in preseason when they're like interviewing some of the older players and talking about stuff, and he was like, what people don't understand is like every year you start at 100%, but the 100% that you start at this year is different from the 100% that you started at last year. And so like every year you start at 100% and you're hitting 60% sooner in the year than what you did the year before. So like my 100% this year is here, but next year my 100% is only going to be here, and I'm going to hit, whereas last year I hit 60 about here in the season. This year I'm going to hit 60 somewhere around in here. So like you're shortening your lifespan every year. So having to go through a full, and the off season is, for as much as they've lightened it up, the off season is still fucking football. Like it's so to put him through to put any of the older guys, especially somebody like Flacco that was semi-retired to a large extent, to have him go through a full off season and all. That's why I said, like, I feel like he would be more than content to sit on the sidelines and be semi-retired and just wait for that call. Like when somebody goes down and they need a quarterback to come in, then be like, hey, hit me up. But if I got to do an off season, fuck that shit.
Call me third week of the preseason if someone blows out an ACL, and then I'll come in.
Right. That's what I feel like. Where I feel Flacco is.
Yeah, and the next game that happened later that evening, only on Peacock, if I remember correctly, involved no old quarterbacks, but man, you couldn't tell because one of them, that being Tua, played like absolute dog shit. And
Fourth
Dolphins
coldest game in history.
Dolphins at Chiefs, and I'll say this: they kept saying that, and I was surprised that was the fourth coldest. Like, yes, it was cold, but we've been in the era of domes for 40 plus years. I thought that all the games in the 50s, once you made it to the postseason, were because they all happened in New York and Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and it's like and Well, I don't know about Buffalo back then, but either way, it's like there had to have been like more than 3 games that were colder than this. I was surprised.
You don't believe in global warming, Jim.
I am trying my damnedest to be a denier, but when they keep talking about this is the 4th coldest on record, I'm like, bullshit. Like, they didn't have thermometers when Jim Brown was running the ball. What are you talking about?
Only some of the games.
Yeah, they only checked it when it was convenient to check it. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, fuck it. We're playing either way.
Yeah, you know what? Because no one was bitching about it. They were just like, yeah, it's fucking January.
No. But going back to your, mentioning how shit Tua looked is like, that's exactly the type of game that the Dolphins always lose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember growing up, there was like some stretch where they had I think they had never won in franchise history a game under 30 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's a long-standing thing with the team. And then just, they didn't have it. They had so many injuries on defense. They were down to people are signing off the practice squad to try and rush fucking Patrick Mahomes. So that wasn't going to be good. But then, the offense looked awful. They couldn't get anything moving because they were all frozen stiff. And Tua, Tua's good in the system right now, but, it's going to be just like, I feel in a few years, like how Kyle Shanahan out there and Jimmy G is like, something's going to start happening and they're going to start grooming some guy to come in and, possibly take Tua's spot. Mike McDaniel's going to have his own guy because Tua, good on him. He was healthy all year long. He led the league in passing yards, so he can put up the numbers, but he's going to get to the point where he's not going to be the guy down there, and they're going to have to move on to someone else.
So I'm going to ask this question 3 times tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first one. Was it Tua or was it the game plan? Because I watched pretty much that whole game, and I didn't understand the game plan in that weather against that defense. Like, there are some things that you can't do in that weather against that defense, and they just kept going back to doing those same things over and over again. Like, at some point, you've got to try to, and they have a very competent running game. They have a very Mike McDaniels is a brilliant offensive mind. He's able to do other things. Why do they keep doing they just keep running their head into the wall over and over again against a defense that it's not working against? Like, that it's yes,
it was frustrating.
Tua had some bad moments, but the overall game plan seemed to put him in a position to have those bad moments. Like, that's how I felt about it.
Well, and real quick on top of that, and I'm not going to sway Duke's answer because it is his team that he has to answer for. You got to answer for your team, Duke. But it's Forte's team. Your team's the Bucks, right?
I like the Dolphins.
Okay. But there were so many times that Tua went for a fake handoff, play action, and he went to the side that his running back wasn't on. And that to me isn't cold weather related. That is, I'm not able to pick up that my running back is in a certain spot. Like, they just seem completely not present. On top of that, mix in a game plan that did not adjust throughout the game is how I read it. And then just poor execution as the third ingredient. I mean, because I think if that game was warm, Kansas City would have put up 40.
Well, probably because, like I said, they had no one on defense. All of their top.
I'll give you that. I'll definitely give you that.
Ramsey was out. Both their pass rushers, like their top pass rushers, were out, blowing out for the knee. Phillips and freaking Chubb, both are gone.
That is very, very, very.
They were signing like Ingram off of the practice squad and bringing him in, hoping Ingram's going to do something. Melvin Ingram.
Yeah.
But no, they definitely should have been pounding the ball a whole lot more. They were not. It's almost like he was trying to prove a point, like stubbornly. It's like it's Tyreek Hill's trip back here, so we got to make sure that Tyreek Hill is, force feeding him is how we're gonna win. But
in those that exact environment is the kryptonite to a small, speedy receiver. Because all you got to do is bump him off the line, and he's on his ass. And then he's on an icy field. He can't get back up, can't get his footing, play over.
Well, like we were talking about in Alan Mosley's Discord, like people don't understand how much it hurts when a ball hits your hands in
cold weather.
Once the temperature gets down below like 10 degrees, when a ball hits your hands, oh my God, it fucking hurts. Like,
fuck yeah.
The worst game I played. Yeah, the worst game I played in was freezing. It was a freezing rain game, and I started out with gloves on, thinking that I was like gonna try to keep my hands warm and be able to catch the ball. Holy shit, that hurt so much. Like, eventually, after the first quarter, I just took the gloves off and let my hands get so numb that like it's easier to try to wrangle in a ball not being able to feel it than to have it hurt so much every time it hits your hands that it feels like your fingers are breaking, even though like nothing's happening. It's just a ball hitting you. But holy shit, like how much that fucking hurts. Like, and to try to run an air raid offense in that weather, that's fucking insane.
I just think that was the absolute worst possible combination of elements to run into with a beyond depleted defense going into Kansas City, who really felt like they had something to prove because they've had a shitty year, like a year that, my team would die for. But to them, defending Super Bowl champs have won, 3 out of the last 4 or 3 out of the last 5, whatever. To look as
5, I think,
to look as bad as they did all year. It wasn't like, we had a good run weeks 1 through 6. I mean, you go into their house, have to play them when they're angry, pissed off, and feeling like they got to buck up. And then you got the weather against you. Defense is depleted. Offense is not set up to operate in those conditions. You kind of have to just chalk that up to like, all right, that was kind of how we thought it was going to go. What's the Dolphins fans' optimism level going into next year? Because does that team pretty much stay intact? I don't know anything about like players expected to leave.
I mean, Armstead's talking like he's going to retire because he's just completely beat up. So that's the left tackle. So that's not going to be good. But other than that, they're kind of like built like the Rams were built there for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Like they got a lot of high priced guys. Tyreek Hill is going to come off the books here in a couple of years, and then they're definitely going to have to pay Waddle here the next year or two. So it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to finagle some things, but they've got the pieces.
I think Mostert's 31, so he's already somehow outlived the running back wall.
But
they got
a guy that's had a lot of knee problems too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they have A-Chain there. He's pretty good. They'll find someone else. It'll be like that Shanahan system. It's like, all right, well, we just need a guy to be able to do this, that, and the other thing, and we'll bring him in and find him in the 4th round, and he'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Running backs are good like that. You can kind of pick them wherever you want. Not the top 10 of the 1st round, though. Fuck.
But see,
calm down, Jim. Calm down.
Sorry.
But see, he catches a lot of balls.
Does he?
His migraines like Percy Harvin.
I saw him put a lot of balls on the turf, but I'm sure there were some catches in there too. All right, enough about the teams that aren't in the playoffs. I guess next game is yours, Justin. You had the game that both Forte and I saw coming from a million miles away. I was almost as certain on this game as I was Dolphins Chiefs. And that was the Packers going down to Dallas to give old Jerry one last ride on the, I'm trying to think of something funny to say, but it's all going to sound like some gay sex because that's what it looked like.
There was some
Well,
butt fucking going on there.
Well, yeah.
I saw it coming through. I just didn't want to admit it, or I just didn't want to accept it. Now, so my wife has convinced me I'm fully on the Packers playoff train. If we're gonna fucking do this, let's just win the Super Bowl. To hell with the next 10 years and having a good draft pick and building for the future. Let's win it now. And then we got one from Favre, we got one from Rodgers, and we got one from Jordan Love. We've had more in through 3 different quarterbacks over a stretch than what most teams would get in their entire lifetime. So
I can speak from experience. Yes,
I'll take it. Like I'm on board. Fuck the future. Let's win today.
It's like Major League. It's like Major League. It's like, fuck it. Let's just go win the whole damn thing.
Yeah. Let's do it. But this is another one of those games where I'm going to ask, and this one more, I was just kind of following sporadically off and on throughout the day. Was this Dak Prescott's fault, or was it a game plan problem? Because it seemed like from what I watched popping in and out, that's the problem with those 4 o'clock or whatever start times, whatever on the days that I work, is I'm trying to get ready for work, and then I've got an hour drive to work. So I'm not able to like consistently just watch. I'm having to do all of my bullshit. I would rather the game happen at like a 7:15 start time where I'm at work, because then I can just say fuck this and pull it up on my screen at work and watch the game instead of doing my job. But
employee of the month type of shit.
But when I have to be like getting ready to get to work and all that, then I'm actually doing stuff. Yeah. And so I wasn't able to watch the game, which fucking sucked, but I was paying enough attention throughout it to kind of have an idea of what was going on. And was it Dak or was it the game plan?
I wouldn't say that it was a Dak thing. I wouldn't say it was a game plan thing. I would say it was a Dallas Cowboys thing. And because it wasn't just the Cowboys offense that was awful. Their defense was god awful as well. Mm-hmm. And on top of it, Jordan Love was making some retarded throws and just hitting dimes all over the place, like falling off his back foot and just tossing one up over a defender into the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, it was destiny that game went the way that it went. It's just some of the football gods were smiling on the Packers and were shitting on the Cowboys, as they tend to do.
Yeah, no, it was not having a dog in that fight made that game very, very fun to watch. Unlike the Browns-Texans game where I didn't have a dog in that fight, and that game was not fun to watch at all. It was an ass beating the whole way through. But the Packers, for some reason, there's just something about the Cowboys. Like, I don't hate the Browns. Like, watching the Browns get the Brown kicked out of them wasn't enjoyable, but watching the Cowboys get this shit kicked out of them kind of always is.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be a Cowboys fan as a kid, like the Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin days, and with Dion on there and Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer.
If you weren't a Cowboys fan during that, were you even American?
You were for the terrorists, and everybody knows this.
You probably hated Hulk Hogan and liked whatever that other guy,
Iron Sheik. You fat.
The Iron Sheik. Yeah, you were probably feared for the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, and so it's not that I don't like the franchise; it's that the franchise doesn't like its fans. They make them do terrible things, like get their hopes up and then like just collapse in the postseason, like clockwork.
Mm-hmm.
To be undefeated at home all year and just beat the absolute brakes off of other good teams throughout the year, it's almost like they showed up with an air of arrogance and instead of confidence. Like they thought that this was just going to be a real quick, because it was a 2 seed versus a 7 seed, and they knew that, and they played like it. So I don't know what their game plan was supposed to be, because they didn't execute on any level to know what that game plan was supposed to be. And the most shocking wasn't that Dak threw interceptions and that he had a bad game, because we've seen that out of him. What we haven't seen, really, outside of like maybe 1 or 2 games all year, is the defense just absolutely not show up, which goes back to what I was saying a week ago, where the biggest reason why I thought the Packers were going to win that game stems from something that is still not confirmed, but at the time I felt like was a damn shoe-in, and that was that Dan Quinn's coaching brain was already in Seattle, because he is preparing to take the guaranteed open door welcome up there with the Seahawks, and that was going to take his intensity off of this game. And that's all it would take. Is Dak will make enough mistakes in a game that any team can still be in it when the game matters, like the postseason. But the defense really had to be there to keep their hopes of winning that game alive. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't.
No, they're getting run all over. On top of getting thrown all over.
Yeah. Now, I was kind of expecting that because of all the reasons I already stated, but I did not take into account how arrogant the Cowboys were going to waltz into Jerry World, flip their dress up, bend over the table, and let the Packers just go to town on them. And that's literally what they did for 3 full quarters.
Speaking of getting run all over, it doesn't hurt that Aaron Jones is like finally healthy at the best possible time for him to be healthy.
Got fresh legs.
Yeah, he was nursing a hamstring all year.
Yeah, from game 1 in Chicago all the way through.
That was one of those. Who was it that I know I've said this before because I have also dealt with a hamstring injury. There was a receiver one year that said, I would rather tear my ACL in week 1 than pull a hamstring, because at least if I tear my ACL, I get to go out, they fix it, and I can come back fine. If I pull a hamstring, I now have a pulled hamstring for the rest of the season, and it's always going to fucking suck. Like there's nothing you can do other than just suck it up and try to push through it. And like when I pulled my hamstring, I think it was about 3 months before and I didn't do shit. Like I didn't have to play football.
I'm not a pro athlete.
Right. I wasn't playing football every fucking Sunday. And it was still 3 months before I felt right. Like, a hamstring. So Aaron Jones is finally getting healthy at just the right time. And he is a hell of a running back when he's healthy.
Yeah. And when he's got something to run for. So that was an anomaly. The Packers just played their way into now going out to San Francisco. And these are matchups that, going back to Madden 95, going back to that era, we got and were some of the best all-time classic NFL games of my life. Was watching the Packers against the Cowboys in the postseason, watching the Cowboys and the Niners in the postseason, watching the Packers and the Niners in the postseason. San Francisco has not fared well in the postseason at home. They've been very good during the regular season, good enough to have a lot of home playoff games, but they've also found ways to look similar to what the Cowboys did last week. So I know we're all in saying, fuck it, go win the whole damn thing.
Yeah, but
I don't know if we want to.
The difference is now with San Francisco is that they're not down to the 3rd string quarterback.
I mean,
that's true.
Is Brock Purdy any better than the 3rd string quarterback?
Oh, dang.
They've shown that they're able to win with Brock Purdy. They're not just trying to bring in.
I've got a Brock Purdy intro of him in college just doing some of the most retarded shit you've ever seen on a football
and he'll probably do some retarded shit.
And he went through a stretch this year of about 3 straight games where I was running that intro because he looked like that version of Brock Purdy. So he has that greatness in him to throw a interception to a off of a offensive lineman's back, bounce it back into his own hands, and then shuttle it over to a linebacker that's coming at him too fast or something. Like, you never know. He has done some crazy shit. So
maybe that can just be a tease for later on when we pick the next week's games. I got ahead of myself. I got a little excited.
But the next, also, I'm gonna have to dip out, guys.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, it was good hanging. Enjoy the rest of the review. Jim, Justin, you guys have a good night.
Sounds good. Thanks, Duke.
All right, take it easy, guys.
All right, let's roll through the rest of our recap of last week.
Yeah, the next game was, I think, one of the more anticipated games of the entire weekend, just out of the sheer lack of knowing what to expect, because we've never seen one of these teams in the playoffs if you're under 30. And that was the Rams going up to Detroit, where apparently weather is an issue, to take on the Lions. And a game that had all the energy that you wanted to see. Detroit fans brought it. The atmosphere, I think, was as good as any of the playoff atmospheres from any of these games. And I mean, they had Eminem's old ass out there with his Just for Men beard. He was, for being a Michigan guy, he sure is trying to look a lot like Ryan Day. But yeah, they had him out there doing all of his shit. And I guess, you got to do what you got to do. But the one thing I didn't like, and the one thing that I think Detroit fans need to get shat all over for, is booing Matthew Stafford. What the fuck is wrong with you? You make the playoffs once in 3 decades, and you think that gives you the right to start booing Super Bowl winning quarterbacks that literally helped and did everything in his power to bring your franchise up to a place that was valuable enough to trade for the quarterback that's now winning you playoff games? You worthless fucking uppity 1 playoff win and 3 decade winning fan base fucks. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, I swear to God, the shit talking I've seen from some Detroit fans on Matthew Stafford has me just wanting to go, do you even know what the fuck you're talking about? Like, Detroit, get your shit together, man. Act like you want to be here, because I don't know what the fuck that was about. That shit pissed me the fuck off. Like, and yeah, I'm defending Stafford because he is a Georgia quarterback. Well, he's a Texas guy that came to UGA because he's smart. But yeah, I'm not gonna let a future Hall of Famer, overall good guy, who literally played with separated shoulders for the shitty ass fucking Lions, to then come back to Detroit and what should have been a celebratory moment, and you boo that man. Get the fuck out of here. I get it when Michael Vick comes back to Atlanta and he gets booed. That motherfucker murdered dogs. Matthew Stafford has never heard a hair on anybody's head. You fucking ingrate.
Dude, the dude had what, 7 consecutive 4,000-yard passing seasons? Like, I mean, he did everything humanly possible for that team to not suck. The Lions failed him more than he failed the Lions. But like that was when I was like, as a Packers fan, I hated the Lions, but even more, I hated to see how they would let Matthew Stafford down every year. Like, I would feel bad. Like, I really would pull for him as a player. Like,
in spite of the Lions.
Yeah, be great, do good. It's terrible for you that your team sucks, but whatever.
Yeah, they were booing Stafford in the stadium. They had this whole push to not allow Stafford's Lions jerseys in the building. And then obviously, in some group chats, I saw some really, really, really retarded takes that if it was on the general pop internet, I would have had a few things to say, but I just let it go because I was like, you got to be out of your fucking mind. Like,
we love you, Steve, even if you are a boomer.
Yeah, he did not run Calvin Johnson out of Detroit. I just want to put that out there. That's the dumbest take. It's the first time I've ever heard that take, and I was like, wow. Would have thought for sure I would have heard about that by now. I don't know. It was just weird to see Detroit fans turn against Stafford. Like, I remember when the Rams won the Super Bowl, Lions fans were openly and publicly happy for him and celebrating that we love that dude for all the things he did for our city and our team, and he did it the right way. And I'm just happy that he got a Super Bowl. It sucks it wasn't here in Detroit, but I'm happy he got one. And then you guys get one good year. I don't know, man. That was just fucking wild.
But the game was equally wild.
Was
Detroit pulled out and then let the Rams come back, which kind of goes to who was it? I think it was Goon in our fantasy football group chat that is has been telling us that Detroit's defense is not all of that, even though it looked like it was earlier in the season. He was like, nah, I'm gonna pump the brakes on.
He was the first one I heard actually call it out for the suspectness in the secondary that it had.
And you saw that get kind of taken advantage of to an extent in the second half against the Rams. They still managed to do enough to pull it out. Yeah, that was actually a good game. It was a close game.
Yep. Home team won, happy smiles leaving the building.
It's everything you want from a playoff football game. Like the team that's supposed to win wins. You get the kind of home, the feel good story for Detroit, but you also got a good competitive game. Matthew Stafford got to go out in Detroit, like giving it everything he had. He gave them, as all of the Detroit fans have been quick to say, Matthew Stafford finally brought a playoff victory to Detroit. So,
yep,
whatever.
Another reason not to boo him. No, it happened the way that I think it should have for all the happy, good feeling time stuff. And it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, though, because I was fully banking on the Rams passing attack chopping up that Detroit questionable secondary. And that didn't happen enough to sway the game into a Rams victory. A lot of that also goes back to, was it Higbee, the Rams tight end that got his knee blown to bits by the Detroit, I don't know if it's cornerback or safety, but it was the same guy who injured another tight end earlier in the year. Like, they're saying it's dirty hits. All he's doing is, tight ends are tall, they're huge. He's trying, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. It's possible that he's a dirty player and he's going for injuries and he's just aiming for knees. But with the rules the way they are, if you hit anywhere north of the belly button, there's a chance you're going to get flagged for targeting, thrown out of the game, fined. And even if you don't get flagged, there's still a possibility that you get fined $50,000 after the fact. And so when you incentivize going low on every hit you make, you're going to see more lower leg injuries. So I've seen some people calling him out saying that he's a dirty player. I'm not willing to go there yet. I need to hear how he sounds in a press conference. Like, what's his attitude? Does he give a fuck? Like, is he like, yeah, whatever, fuck that fool? Like, wearing the wrong colors in my fucking hood? Like, or does he come out and explain it the way I just laid it out? So I can't make an assessment on a player being dirty or not. I understand that if he's ended the season or, had a 12-month recovery on two different players for going low on him, it's something to pay attention to, but it sucks for Higbee.
But also people who aren't around human beings with that mass don't understand, like, most tight ends are 6'4", 6'5", 250, 270 pounds. Like, how big is Higbee? He's like 6'3", 240 or something. Like, these are not small people. And
I think he's taller than that.
And DBs they're like 5'10", $180. Like, you're not taking that guy down, hitting him above the waist. You've got to wrap his legs up if you're going to have any chance to get him on the ground to have a successful defense of the ball. Like, other than poking the ball out, and even then, I mean, you're going against dudes that got fucking meat hooks on them. Like, you're going to have trouble wrestling the ball away from those guys. So you've got to go for their legs if you're going to have a chance of defending that pass. So yeah, I mean, it sucks, but that's the position that you're in, and it happens. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't bother me because the Rams aren't my team, and I don't have to defend Detroit. I'm not defending any of these teams. Like, I'm just seeing what I'm seeing and then looking at the reaction online, and then, like, internet nerds will pull up an entire 6-year-long catalog of every hit the guy's ever made and then start to connect dots. And it's not shit that I would know off the top of my head, but if I see other people start to point out, like, hey, this guy's done this a lot, like, is this something? I'm like, well, now that I'm aware of it, I'll watch for it. But it's one of those shitty things. It's still football. Like, you still have to have the risk of, landing the wrong way. Like, you can also have non-contact injuries. So it sucks for him because he's likely not going to be ready for the start of next season. But they're all millionaires, and, what do I care? He'll be fine. It's not like he's going hungry because somebody hit him on the kneecap. But good for Detroit. They are now welcoming, and we played this a little earlier, the Buccaneers to come play them. And the way that some of these teams have collapsed, and we'll get to this in a second, there's some dark horse teams that have a legit shot to do things that I don't think anybody had on the table back in September. And for somebody without a dog in the playoff hunt, it makes it more interesting for me to watch when there's things like that happening, instead of all the top seeds and favorites just coming in and winning everything.
I'd say,
so I'm here for chaos.
We can probably go straight to that collapse because I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time lingering on Buffalo beating the brakes off of Pittsburgh. That was kind of what you would have expected. Buffalo has come on strong at the end of the year. I mean, there was a point where like Buffalo needed to win 5 of the next 6 games to even have a chance at making the playoffs, and then they did all of that and then some, and steamrolled their way in. Whereas Pittsburgh limped in.
Yeah. And not to mention, it was kind of like a Dolphins Chiefs 2.0 because you had all the other factors: night game, extreme winter conditions, cold as shit. They had to delay the game 24 hours due to snow. Not saying Pittsburgh isn't a cold weather team, but you don't have cold weather players. You got Mason Rudolph, your third string quarterback, out there chunking balls around to guys that don't want to be playing in that. And the Bills, I am going to be interested to see what team can stop them the way that they're rolling now. So, yeah, that's really as in depth on that. The Eagles-Bucks game, though, was one that is like, what happened? Like, both the Cowboys and Eagles, it's like, y'all were supposed to be dominant. We had seen it this year. Y'all be dominant. Hey.
Did you see there was like a rundown. I can't remember who did it, but somebody did a rundown on like the play calling from the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles, and the way the Eagles were built as a team with, you run the ball, and then you use the run to set up the throw. And they came out and ran the ball like 2 or 3 times in their first 6 plays or something. And then after that, it was just pass. And again, this is the 3rd time that I'm going to ask, was it Jalen Hurts or was it the game plan? Because the way that game plan was set up, it was not what made the Eagles a good offense for the better part of the year. Like, as you saw their devolution over the last 6 weeks or so, you also saw that changing of the game plan where they're trying to do things that team is not built to do. They are built to run the ball and use the run to set up the pass. And instead they went away from that and they tried to become a very air raid type of a pass happy offense that they as a team are not built for.
This time I'm going to go back on the previous 2 answers. Those will stay the same, but my answer for this game will change. I think it was Jalen Hurts. The dude physically couldn't throw. His hand was fucked up. So
but that goes to, you're without what AJ Brown was out, right?
Yep.
And Jalen Hurts' hand is.
Yep. Devontae Smith was banged up.
So again, game plan wise, you should not be trying to do that with all of these factors in play.
So the game plan should have reflected the status of their players. And I agree with you. I don't think that they compensated for that correctly. Clearly, the results speak for themselves. But while they weren't compensating for those factors, it then comes back on Jalen to go over to the sideline and have a discussion with your OC. Every time you've seen Jalen since he's gotten to the NFL, and even when he was in college, it's a credit to some and it's a detriment to others. And I think for Jalen, it's both. He's too cool, calm, collected, nice, easygoing, happy to go, happy to go along, happy to be there. There's no emotion. He is in a quarterback, it's like, I like to see him cool under pressure, but you also like to see him give a shit. And I've never seen Jalen Hurts, like Patrick Mahomes is full of piss and vinegar, and he'll get in his players' faces and Kermit the Frog the fuck out of all of them. Matt Stafford, same. Josh Allen, same. Like Stroud, he'll bring the whole team over and he'll be getting in all their asses. But Jalen Hurts has never done that once. I haven't seen it. I don't even go back to college. He might have, but not enough to where it stands out. And there's video of Dallas Goedert, the tight end, getting in Jalen's ass and Jalen barely looking up at him. And so it's almost like, are you so cool and relaxed that you just don't care? Because you're the player that knows your body. And it's if they're calling certain plays that you're incapable of executing to a successful degree, it's incumbent on you as the quarterback, the field general, the offensive leader, to take control of a fucking game and do something different. So the coaches fucked him for not having a good game plan coming into the game. But I think in this instance, it falls back on Jalen. Because even Dak, I've seen Dak get fiery and, make plays. Jalen doesn't make plays. He performs the tasks that is delivered to him to fulfill. He is just a placeholder with a recognizable name. The tush push isn't on him. It's on his offensive line and the guys pushing him. But you look at his stat lines. Oh my God, look how many touchdowns Jalen has. That's literally the system and the game plan helping Jalen look good. But I think the Eagles could do without Jalen and be just fine. I don't think he's the difference maker on that offense whatsoever. And I think when the offense isn't going in the right direction, he's not going to correct it. So to me, this game sold me on my theory on Jalen on whether or not he had the fire to be an effective winning NFL quarterback for the long haul. I don't think he is.
And speaking of being the guy that's fiery and makes plays, there were a few moments during that game where Baker Mayfield just absolutely pulled the ball out of his ass and made a miraculous throw for absolutely no reason. Like it just happened. It's like, holy shit, did you see that? Like, yeah, Baker will run around and just chuck it up there and hit somebody out of the blue, and it's like he will go make a play. Jalen's not doing that. So, and those plays extended drives and put Tampa in position to score points when they probably shouldn't have, and continue to extend that lead while Philadelphia just didn't have an answer. And the Tampa defense looked good. I mean, they got after it. They dialed it up and they went after. Like Todd Bowles is not a bad coach. He's a very competent coach, and he had a good game plan on the defensive side of the ball to go after and get after Jalen Hurts, to get after that offense, and to keep them from being able to get comfortable.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me. Like it's almost like those two quarterbacks are playing on the wrong teams. They should have been on opposite sidelines, because Baker is Philly personified and Jalen is like cool Tampa, West Coast Florida life. Like it was almost like Freaky Friday. It's like y'all are in the wrong bodies or something. I think Baker would be a beloved superhero, much like Jason Kelce, if he played for the Eagles, because I would rather have a team full of Baker Mayfields than a team full of Jalen Hurts. And I hate Baker Mayfield, but I hate him because he's such a cocky, arrogant, dance in the end zone, headbutting with no helmet on, asshat. But if he was on my team, I would love him.
So what did you think of Adam Schefter ruining Jason Kelce's retirement like he did?
Well, I'll be honest. I saw the Schefter tweet, and I thought that was the news being reported on as it was intended to be known at the time. I didn't know until days later that was a big, hey, you kind of just fucked up the whole plan here, which sucks badly for Kelsey because you only get one chance to
Right off into the
make-
sunset.
Yeah, there's not a second way to do that. It's kind of like proposing. It's like, you get down on one knee and she looks away and the crowd starts going wild. So you stand up because you're like, fuck, she didn't see it. You're going to lose that moment. Like, you should be in control of how you go out when you have a career like he's had. And to not have it happen the way he wanted it to happen, it fucking sucks for that dude. Because I like Jason Kelsey. Travis Kelsey can go drive off a fucking cliff. I don't give a fuck. But Jason is a guy that, like, you want your team built around. That he's just a cool dude. Does it the right way, soft-spoken, very effective on field, not loud and boisterous because he doesn't need to be. He's the fucking center. Yeah, I thought that was yet another example of an online reporter trying to be the first instead of respecting the people that, because him doing that kind of shit will affect, like, maybe not this one story, but reporters that do shit like that don't get access to information. So it's not in his interest to do things like that. Like, he fucked up. But I haven't spent a lot of time pondering it. It was just when I heard it, I was like, I fucking hate it for that dude. You kind of hope that somebody that is that beloved, has played for one team his whole career, has got a good, entertaining personality on him, kind of gets to call a shot. Like, I'd feel the same way about Stafford and other players. Like, I want those guys to be able to hit their final chapter on their terms.
So that covers the games as they happened. Now we get to do this week's games.
Yeah. So first game up is this Saturday at 4:30. The Houston Texans go to Baltimore to go take on the Ravens, yo. Ravens making their playoff debut this year because they had the bye, because they were the number 1 seed, and so like under the radar dominant. Like, the Bills got more pub, the Dolphins did, the Chiefs did because of Taylor Swift and whatever the fuck. There were other teams that were getting a lot more recognition. The Ravens just kind of went out, did their thing all year, beat the fuck out of good teams, and Lamar is sitting in the driver's seat for the MVP. There's no doubt. I mean, you think losing Mark Andrews on the offensive side for Baltimore would have really negatively affected how their offensive performance was going to end up becoming. Baltimore has been a running back graveyard the last 3 years, where if you're running the ball in Baltimore, you will have a season-ending injury. And we will be signing players off other teams' practice squads and out of retirement. The same thing happened this year. They've got at least 2 guys, I think, that blew out their knees. Keaton Mitchell and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, Dobbins. That was
Yet they're still plugging along, winning the fuck out of games. And so it's like one of those teams that I've probably seen the least. I've seen the Texans way more than I've seen the Ravens. So if I'm just going off of my eye test, it's like, these Texans really got something cooking. But ever since the Ravens signed Todd Monken as their OC, somebody that I'm familiar with, I have to side with the Ravens until they prove me wrong by losing. This will mark 2 weeks in a row that I'm picking against the Texans. So if the Texans win, I will immediately flip and have them going all the way. That's the rule. You kind of have to go. You kind of have to do that at this stage. If you're proven wrong twice in the playoffs, you kind of have to just start loving that team the rest of the way. But yeah, give me the Ravens. They're favored by 9.5 at home. I think. I don't think this will be as ugly as the Texans-Browns game, but it could.
Yes, it could. The Ravens had some moments where they looked very beatable early in the season, which that was when they were having those running back injuries happen. Like by the time Mark Andrews got hurt, the rest of the offense was pretty well doing what the offense is doing. Like Gus Edwards and who's the other guy?
Justice Hill.
Yeah. So like Edwards kind of came into his own. Justice Hill has his role that he plays on the team. They've gotten away from having Lamar carry the running game as much, and that I think that has helped them a lot. He's been less injured this year than he has probably in any year previously. So that's helped them a lot. Isaiah Likely just picked up right where Andrews left off. Like they didn't really miss a beat once they got through that initial game where there was kind of the transition of figuring it out. He never missed a beat after that. Like and that defense is Baltimore level defense. Like it's what you expect from Baltimore defense.
When they signed Roquan over from Chicago to be their middle linebacker and their Mike Singletary, I knew that defense was going to improve because they were splotchy there 2-3 years ago. Then when they made that trade, I was like, first of all, what is Chicago doing? I mean, hell, you went from having Roquan Smith and Mack on your defense, and you let both of them go away. And the results for Chicago have been very clear on why they are what they are. But the results on the field for the Ravens are also very clear on why they are what they are. That defense, I can't name you a lot of players. I only know Roquan because, well, Georgia guy, homerism. But I can't name you anybody else on that defense. They're just all where they're supposed to be, and they play tough, and they keep teams contained. They don't let anything get over the top, and nobody can run on them. So the Texans aren't a running team. So it's really going to be, can you get after the quarterback? I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I haven't done a stat dive to see where the Ravens stack up and QB pressures, hits, knockdowns, sacks. But I got a feeling that if they want to go get them, they probably can more times than not. And I think that will be the deciding factor in the game. Baltimore's offense, I don't think the Texans' defense can put a cap on them at all. I think if the Texans were to win this game, it's going to be one of those where you're going to need mistakes from Baltimore's offense, turnovers, and Stroud playing a second perfect game like he played last week.
And I just don't think that Baltimore's offense is built to make those kind of mistakes. Like you've got the safety valve of the running backs coming out of the backfield. They're both competent ball catchers. You've got the safety valve of Isaiah Likely, who's a very good tight end. Like you don't have to push the ball downfield. You just have to consistently make plays. And what's the guy's? Odell hasn't been bad. Odell Beckham has actually had a decent year, but he also doesn't have to be the number one guy. Like they can throw the ball to. Why am I drawing a blank on that guy's name now?
Number 4 rookie wide receiver.
Yeah, the rookie. Damn it. Anyway, him. We both know who I'm talking about. He's emerged as a very good receiver that can make big catches when they need him to. Odell can still make big catches when he needs to, but they don't have to rely on pushing the ball down the field like that. They can just take you for chunks and keep going, and they're not going to have those dumb turnovers.
Zay Flowers,
that's it. I knew it was Zay, and I knew Zay Jones wasn't right. He plays for somebody else.
But Zay Flowers, rookie receiver, had a very slow start to the season. If he was on your fantasy team, you probably dropped him by week 6. Luckily, I held on to him in one league, and I think he won me the championship. Yeah, I won the championship in the league that I held on to him because it took him a while to come on because they were just dumping it to Mark Andrews and their running backs. They were relying on the short pass game. And I think a lot of that was Munkin also getting adjusted to the offense, finding out, okay, how can I utilize the tools that are on this offense? And then I'd say by week 10 to 12, he he fully grasped, okay, this is this guy's capabilities, and this is this guy's strengths, and this is this running back's weaknesses. So when I have them all 3 on the field, I've got these 3 sets I can run him out of. He immediately honed in his offensive play calling to put those players where they needed to be to have the maximum opportunity at success. I watched him do it at Georgia, and he did the same exact thing with Baltimore. That's why he's getting head coaching interviews right now. So yeah, I think the Ravens are too veteran of a club with talent on both sides of the field, a head coach that's been there forever, an offensive coordinator that I think is finally tapped into what that team can do. The Texans are young. They're unproven. I think a lot of it is they're lucky to be here. So if the Texans were to pull it off, it's only because Baltimore has a bad day, in my opinion.
Yep, I would 100% agree with that. The next game of the day is my team. So we got Packers going to the Niners. I don't have a lot of faith in Brock Purdy. And that Packers defense, they have found what they do. They don't just get after the quarterback. They get after the line of scrimmage. And for everything that Christian McCaffrey is capable of, I'd say hands down, he's the best running back in the game, period. Mm-hmm. But with the way they attack the line and get after the line of scrimmage, I think it's going to be tough for the Niners offense to get a good rhythm. I mean, they've got all the weapons, they've got all the tools. You got Kittle, you got Ayuk, you got McCaffrey. Like, they've got everything that you could have, but pressure changes that whole dynamic, and the Packers have the ability to put that pressure. Plus, the Packers secondary has gotten like Aaron Jones. The Packers secondary has gotten healthy at just the right time of year, and they're really starting to come on. So that's I think the Packers have a chance to win. This isn't just me writing all right, let's Super Bowl or bust. I mean, I think they legitimately have a chance to pull an upset in this game.
Yeah, and speaking of McCaffrey, they did have a bye, so that allows the team an additional week to get healthy. But he did miss the final game. So really he's going to have like 3 weeks of getting healthy. But anytime you need 3 weeks to get healthy, that means that you're not healthy. And he was banged up in week 17, which was game 16 for them. And that affected how their offense operated. Same thing when they're missing Ayuk or Debo. Kittle has flashes where 1 week he'll have 2 or 3 touchdown catches, 150 yards, 12 receptions, and then the next week he'll have 1 catch for 9 yards, and that's it. So they're the most inconsistent good offense. They're right up there with Buffalo. But I think Buffalo has gotten more consistent. I think that they, with Joe Brady, and we'll get to them in a second, but the 49ers are all over the damn place. They've been winning a lot of games, but they're also beating up on a lot of not good teams like the Redskins and the Cardinals twice a year. I was a buyer of the 49ers stock early. But again, like a lot of these teams, yes, even though they won most all their games down the stretch, they didn't look like
unbeatable,
controlling, or they were in the game, and then like the other team would make a few mistakes. There would be turnovers, pick sixes, fumbles inside the 30, and then they would get easy points. I didn't see anything where I was like, wow, this offense can really take control of a game. It was beating up on bad defenses. And I don't think the Packers have a bad defense. And like we said earlier, the Packers are getting healthy at the right time. And I think that there is a chance the Packers could win this game. I, for one, am rooting for the Packers to make it to the Super Bowl so that all the internet retards can shut the fuck up about how it's all rigged, man. It's all predetermined. The script is written. They're even telling you now because the Super Bowl logo has the colors of the teams that are going to be in it, man. Well, right now the colors in that Super Bowl logo are red and purple. So literally any combination of teams not involving the Packers would get you it would still make sense. So I just want the Packers to go in so all these fucking idiots that think they're outsmarting sports as a industry. No, I saw rigged, man. Like the players aren't even trying, and like they don't care. It's all it's wrestling for, sports jocks. It's like, I hate you almost as much as I hate people that boo Stafford in Detroit. Maybe actually a lot more. So for that reason and that reason alone, give me the Packers. I would love nothing more than, because the Packers, I think, have the toughest road to the Super Bowl with the lowest amount of expectations that actually could make it to the Super Bowl. To go and beat Dallas on the road, beat the Niners on the road, and then no matter what happens, would have to either go to Tampa or Detroit. That would be insane. Now, if it ends up being the Buccaneers and Packers for the NFC Championship, no one's going to watch that shit. Nobody is. So I kind of tip my cap for who I think is going to win the next game. But yeah, give me the Packers. Fuck the Niners. I'm tired of them. I see them as the NFC's version of the Chiefs. I like, just don't be in the championship game one year. Like, I cannot have the Niners winning a Super Bowl as long as they have Shanahan as their coach. That motherfucker cost Atlanta a Super Bowl, and I will never forgive him for that. And sports grudges have a life sentence. And yeah, if you can't be petty in sports, then what's the point of even being a fan? It's all petty. So yeah, fuck the Niners. Give me the Pack.
So that sets up who are the Packers going to play in the NFC Championship. I'm all about some Lions Packers for the championship. That would just be perfect.
I know that's a divisional, rematch for the third time this year, and I don't give a shit. That's the only NFC Championship I want. I don't want Lions Niners. I don't want Buccaneers Niners. I don't want Packers Bucks. The only one here that America is demanding is give us Packers Lions. For the love of God. Packers have no business being in the playoffs based on coming into this season. The Lions have no business being in the playoffs just based on time and history and just, the fact there is a God. And the Niners are expected to. The Buccaneers, no one cares about the Buccaneers. No one knows anybody outside of Baker Mayfield. Lions. Give me the Lions all day. They're actually favored by 6.5 at home. And I hope that comes true. I hope for the good Lions fans that are out there, and there are a lot. Here's the problem about being a good fan. No one hears you over your shithead fans' boos. But I know you're there. I see you. I'm still pulling for you.
Well, and the Packers beat the Lions on Thanksgiving, and that was kind of a turning point for the Packers season. Like, from that point forward, you saw a different Packers team than what you had seen earlier in the season. And that's the matchup that I want to see. I want to see, and also I want to see that because the Lions defense is kind of struggling as the Packers offense is really starting to hit its stride. Like that's a good recipe for a Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah. Really, if the Packers just win this weekend, their chances of a Super Bowl appearance goes up like 8-fold. Because whether it's the Buccaneers or the Lions, that is far more manageable than what would be perceived as a very, sturdy opponent in the Niners.
Right. And then we
the
get
final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get the last game of the weekend, Buffalo and Kansas City. Kansas City managed to piss away their chance at having home field in this one by ending the season not so strong. And Buffalo came on really strong over the last 6 weeks or so and locked up home field. So, you mentioned it earlier. I don't know who. Let's see. In what was it that week 17 game? Josh Allen threw 2 picks and had a fumble in the red zone, and they still beat Miami. Like, to overcome that and still beat Miami, like that's always kind of the bugaboo with Buffalo is what happens when Josh Allen starts turning the ball over. Because it's not, is Josh Allen going to start turning the ball over? It's what happens when he turns the ball over. And Buffalo is another one of those teams that their defense was banged up earlier in the season, and they're starting to get healthy at the right time. And that defense is stout. I mean, they get after it. And they're able to weather Josh Allen making some boneheaded plays and still just roll with it. It almost feels like every time Josh Allen does something stupid and turns the ball over, the defense just gets more pissed off, not at Josh Allen, but at the other team, and they take it out on them. Like,
this will teach y'all to pick up a fumble, you fuckers. Yeah, I totally agree. And for once, now this Chiefs-Bills thing has become a little rivalry into its own, similar to Chiefs-Bengals. Now, the Bengals didn't make it in the playoffs this year, so they're not a part of this next chapter in that story. But if you remember a couple years ago, the Chiefs and Bills had a playoff game in Kansas City that went into overtime, where it was a very controversial ending, where the Bills did not have an opportunity to field the ball because the game was a tennis match. It was back and forth. Buffalo scores, Kansas City scores, Buffalo gets a stop, Kansas City gets a stop, Buffalo kicks a field goal, Kansas City kicks a field goal, and go into overtime. And you just knew that both defenses were gassed, and whoever got the ball was going to score. And the way that overtime NFL rules are, the first, if on your opening possession you score a touchdown, that's it, game over, which is the dumbest fucking rule of all time. That is not the best way to determine the best team, on that field that day. It doesn't make sense. I don't know how they argued that, going, yeah, sounds good. But ever since then, the Bills, I think, have had a hard-on to beat the Chiefs, much like the Bengals and Chiefs, or the Chiefs had it on the Bengals, because the Bengals had won 3 straight against the Chiefs and ended their playoff hopes a couple of years. I'm saying all that to say, but this is the first time the Chiefs are going to Buffalo in the postseason. For the past 5 years, anytime the Chiefs have been playing playoff games, they've all been in Arrowhead. I mean, this goes back to Tom Brady being a Patriot. So for the Chiefs, who have looked like absolute ass all year, that ran into a frozen fish last week, they're actually going up against a hot team, a good team. This isn't a fluke. This is a good team that is playing at their best ball of the year. This has all the recipe, or all the parts, to give me a pretty good feeling that the Bills are going to win this game. The Bills are who I want to win this game. And the whole T. Swift, Kelsey charade cannot go on for another week. I cannot stomach championship week with T. Swift cutaways, and Lord knows nobody can stomach a Super Bowl with all the other artists that are going to be singing all the other renditions of songs, plus a halftime show, to also have Taylor Swift in a suite. Like, this needs to end. Buffalo, do America a favor. The favor that everybody's been begging for months. Can we please stop seeing Taylor Swift on our TVs when football games are on? Only you can help us, Buffalo. Come on, do it.
Save us, Josh Allen. You're our only hope.
Fuck yeah, dude. I mean, it's one thing to have stop hate, and it takes all of us, and end racism plastered all over the playing surface, and MLK stickers on the back of players' helmets. And I can look past that, but I can't. There's nothing else for me to look at when you're showing me Taylor Swift acting like a 16-year-old with millionaires' moms. Like, I fucking hate it so much.
Well, and the Bills were my preseason pick to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC, so I've got a little bit of a. It was looking kind of hairy there for a bit. Feeling pretty good about my my preseason pick, I think.
Now, I will say this: the Packers are now officially my team, my Super Bowl representative team from the NFC. The Bills-Packers would be a fun fucking game to watch. But I know I just said all that bullshit about T-Swift. To have a Packers-Chiefs Super Bowl would only for nostalgia reasons, only for, Super Bowl I reasons. The inner football nerd in me would fucking love that. But Taylor Swift exists, so we can't have nice things. And Ravens Packers, I mean, that would feel like a preseason game, but it is what it is. I mean, I'd find a way to get up for it. But Bills Packers would be ideal for me, just as a fan who wants to watch a good game. I think that would be fun. And
it would kind of make sense because, like I've talked about for the past 2 hours, like these are the two teams that they both struggled early in the season. They both had a lot of injuries, especially in their secondaries early in the season. They both had problems on the offensive side early in the season between not really, I think for Buffalo, not really knowing what its identity as an offense was to figuring that out. And for the Packers, just kind of having Jordan Love come into his own and that very young green receiving core start to kind of see different players emerge and take on the responsibility of being able to reel in those big catches and move the ball when they need it. Like both teams kind of had similar paths throughout the year, and they're both getting healthy right when they need to, especially on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, and going against teams that like to throw the ball a lot. Both of them going against San Francisco and against Tampa or Kansas City this weekend, healthy secondaries going against teams that have quarterbacks that have shown that they can make mistakes, that they are human. To see Mahomes be human this year has been a nice change of pace.
Pretty fucking awesome.
and these defenses are ready to dial up and go after them. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And,
absolutely.
And we'll have a lot to talk about next week.
Yeah.
Either way.
I'll go ahead and say this because I want to get it out there just on the off chance that it does happen. The one Super Bowl matchup, the possible Super Bowl matchup that still exists theoretically that nobody wants to see, that would be the lowest rated Super Bowl of all time, would be Buccaneers versus Texans. That's the grossest fucking Super Bowl that I can possibly imagine. Out of actual viable teams that still quasi have a shot. I wonder who's placing bets on that being. I wonder what the odds are. That's got to be a huge payout.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look into it because I don't gamble, but I was just looking at, because
I don't want to imagine that outcome. So
no.
We'll just move on from that. Well, I think that covers everything for this week. We will be back. I definitely plan on being back next week. Hopefully you don't have anything going on, and we can get back next Thursday again and take a look at what happened this weekend and give a preview of championship week. Should be fun.
Sounds good to me.
Later.
See ya.